As the Orc warfleets multiply across the Armageddon subsector and world after world falls, Sector Command is inundated with astropathic distress calls. Manius Augustus Calgar, the most experienced war leader in the Armageddon subsector, takes temporary command of the Imperial response, prioritizing the defense of key worlds. The largest invasion fleet appears in the Armageddon system, and alarmingly, within hours of first contact, the Hive world is designated as fallen. Manius Calgar refuses to accept the Hive world's loss, and whilst simultaneously masterminding the coordinated response to the broader invasion, devotes a portion of his intellect to plotting the relief of Armageddon. So great is the psychic clamour of the Armageddon subsector that Imperial reinforcements are drawn from dozens of light years away. Battlegroup Xerxarian, belonging to Indomitus Crusade Fleet Sextus, is the foremost among these. Calgar divides Xerxarian's resources, deploying Adeptus Sororitas and Astra Militarum assets to planets under siege such as Pyran and Basquit. Space Marine forces, meanwhile, are directed to the mustering at Vos Prime. There, elements of a dozen or more chapters gather. They will form the spearhead of Calgar's planned relief of Armageddon, codenamed Operation Imperator. Other Space Marine forces are drawn to Vos Prime. Foremost amongst these elements are the Black Templars and Space Wolves. These arrivals are incorporated into the planning of Operation Imperator. Little military intelligence escapes the blockade of the Armageddon system. Regardless, a list of priority objectives in the broader star system is drawn up. With targets assigned, crews briefed, and battle brothers prepared, Operation Imperator's void ships plunge into the warp en route to Armageddon. The first elements of Operation Imperator emerge into reality on the westernmost edge of the Armageddon system. With most Orc vessels gathered in orbit around Armageddon and St. Jowan's Dark, their arrival initially goes unnoticed. In the following hours, most of the ships that left Vos Prime have gathered at the system's edge. The formidable armada makes its way deeper into the system. Operation Imperator's first encounter with the invaders occurs near St. Jowan's Dark. The Black Templars' battle barge Sigismund's Fury and the Masters of Protolus strike cruisers Perdition and Virtuous Hatred peel away from the armada and engage a small flotilla blockading the planet's shipyards. As the void battle rages, all three vessels deploy boarding forces against the Orcs and onto the orbiting docks, seeking to purge the Xenos and recover the planet's crucial repair facilities. The remainder of the fleet continues towards Armageddon. As the Adeptus Astartes armada approaches Armageddon orbit, the scale of the invasion fleet becomes abundantly apparent. Fortunately for the vessels of Operation Imperator, the Xenos are absorbed by the battles below and slow to react. The cruisers Iron Tusk and Druckmore's Hammer are obliterated. In return, the Blackguard strike cruiser Valiant Bulwark is struck amidships by munitions and broken into two. The listing portions of the vessel drift away, spilling corpses and chemicals into the void. The battle rages for hours, and the bulk of Operation Imperator's naval power eventually breaks the cordon and settles into low orbit. When the fleet establishes position, chronometers are synchronized, the troops are deployed. The entry flares of drop pods and the contrails of Thunderhawk transports soon light the skies of Armageddon. Operation Imperator is now truly underway. Captain Sendini of the Blood Angels leads the first wave of Space Marines in a drop pod assault against the massed Xenos forces besieging Hive Volcanis. Here, the Orcs under Uzmog Badai and Kill Captain Golblitz have already forced a breach in Hive Volcanis' outer curtain wall, and are rampaging across the crucial Kurov spaceport. As Badai's Basher Boys smash their way through the thin line of Astra Militarum soldiers defending the position, the skies darken with Space Marine dropships and jump troops. The beleaguered defenders, led by Commissar Graves, rally at the sight of the Angels of Death and hole themselves back into the fight. now reinforced by the Salamander's Flameblade Strike Force Agathon, Demi-Company Ionis of the Marines Malevolent. Captains Eothras and Sandini exploit the momentum of their initial assault, hewing apart the stunned hordes and pushing their forces back towards the breach. The highly mobile Blood Angels of Liberator Assault Group Sandini launch repeated hit-and-fade attacks against the Xenos flanks, decimating mobs. With the alien advance beginning to falter, Captain Sandini and his veteran assault troops intercept Kill Captain Golblitz's Nob bodyguards. Orcs and Space Marines alike fall in the brutal engagement that ensues. The final blow is struck by Captain Sandini, who claims Golblitz's head, breaking the cohesion and momentum of the assault. The Necropolis Hawks of Strike Force Gamma are inserted into the Volcanis Mountains by dropship, emerging under heavy fire to advance on the Orc-held Volcanis Mountain Space Defense Fortress. After 2 hours of fighting, the Space Marines breach the structure's walls. More than half of the remaining Necropolis Hawks are slain during the following pitiless combat, but their sacrifice results in the recapturing of the remaining gun batteries. However, with the defeated aliens regrouping to counterattack, the victory may be short-lived. The Celestial Lions, under Lieutenant Nagadwe, undertake an assault on the western mouth of the Mannheim Gap. They quickly engage and destroy the Orc tank hunters and pyromaniacs rampaging through gun batteries and bunker networks. With the weapons of the Volcanis Space Mountain Defense Fortress silenced by the Necropolis Hawks, Thunderhawks emblazoned with the iconography of the Angel's Eradicant sweep low through masses of spiraling rockets and booming flak fire to deposit Repulsor and Gladiator tanks into the firing positions at the heart of the Imperial lines. Once more, the Mannheim Gap becomes a graveyard of twisted steel and bloated corpses, festering in Armageddon's stifling heat. With the Hive's south flank temporarily secured, Captain Eothras and Sandini, Agathon of the Salamanders, and Umaz of the Marines Malevolent turn their thoughts towards the next objectives. With Eothras' approval, Captain Agathon leads his salamanders south to relieve the Necropolis Hawks of Strike Force Gamma, who are now under repeated assault. Eothras and Sandini make for the Volcanis Bridge, the focus of concerted Orc pressure from the east. Captain Umaz's Marines Malevolent catch up with the retreating aliens in the Volcanis Mountains overlooking the Mannheim Gap. It soon becomes clear that they have been lured into a trap. Squigs laden with bombs bound into the Marines' Malevolent ranks, their detonations consuming dozens of battle brothers instantly. Amidst a storm of bolter fire and roars, Umaz cuts through the rampaging Orcs to meet Badai in single combat. The duel is swift and bloody, brought to a violent end when Badai's power claw severs the Space Marine's leg. The battered Marines Malevolent are able to drag their wounded commander to safety, but are forced to retreat under sustained fire and repeated assaults. Captain Sandini's Blood Angels reach the Volcanis Mountain Defense Fortress and reinforce the Necropolis Hawks. The fighting has reduced half of the structure to ruins by the time the Blood Angels plummet into the fray. So fierce and continual is the battle that ammunition caches soon run dry, and squads are reduced to using bolt rifle stocks and armoured fists to bludgeon their foes to death. The day is saved when Chaplain Raphion descends, leading assault intercessors into the fight. Raphion slays the menacing brute bearing the tribe's banner and casts the alien standard down. Demoralized and broken by the unexpected strike, the Orcs are driven back towards the mountain peaks, pursued swiftly and relentlessly by Chaplain Raphion and the remainder of his battle-hungry Blood Angels. Hello and welcome back to Terra, everybody. Welcome back to a very, very hot and sweaty Terra right now. I will be increasingly shiny as this stream continues, I imagine, but it's a pretty exciting time because 11th edition is here, the new lore has dropped, I have my hands on the new Armageddon book, and It's interesting. So I've taken you through there the main timeline. So that's the whole timeline of the campaign as we have it so far. The Orcs got a very quick advantage over the Imperials, but of course, greatest hero of the Imperium, Marneus Calgar himself, quickly rallied a pretty sizable Space Marine force, and the battles, especially over Volcanis and Infernus, have been massive wins for the Imperium, preventing total collapse of the planet. Ghazghkull's win thus far has been prevented, which is very cool, but the Orcs are still pushing hard at the Mannheim Gap and advancing aggressively across the plains of Anthrand, and they are using the captured stronghold of Hive Tempestora as a staging ground to launch strikes converging on Hive Volcanis. And so across, just at the top of this massive Hive Tempestora, you've got the banners of Ghazghkull, the banners of various Orc warbands who are very happy and gloating against the Imperium with this massive victory. And in addition to all of this, we're also talking about the world of Armageddon. So as all of this is going on in the book, you've also got Plague Marines popping up in the wastes. You've got Feral Orcs rampaging across the planet. It's a complete nightmare of a world. Why is the Imperium fighting so hard to make sure that this planet doesn't fall? Well, I mean, the answer is because largely they've done it before. If you just keep fighting over and over for a planet to make sure it doesn't fall, well, you need to keep doing that, because should Armageddon fall, it will be a massive blow to the morale of the Imperium. But there is sort of a wider issue at play here, and the degree to which the Imperium is aware of this is a little bit kind of hazy in the lore. But a lot of this, all of this, is about Ghazghkull and his plan to ultimately crump everybody, including ultimately the Emperor, right? Ghazghkull wants to create the biggest war, and the world of Armageddon, he knows, and the Orcs know, is seemingly connected to the Orcs. We, the readers, know that the planet was actually originally the world of Ulanor, the home world of the Orcs, but the Orcs at the very least know that this planet is something special. They're attracted to it, and so Ghazghkull, not only does he want to crump and fight as much as possible, he wants to do so on Armageddon to draw as many Orcs as he can to his cause, and thereafter he will be able to push out further into Imperium Sanctus, and the entire Imperium will be lost in theory. That's the plan. And so this is pretty much in line with what we've seen in his lore in recent books, and yeah, it's how Orcs work. Ghazghkull is really something different in the lore. He is not just another boss. He is like the center of the Orc. His creator, Grotznik, calls him the bucket of the Orcs. He is this kind of center of the Orc race, and as all of them gain power, he gains power, and so he gets every time an Orc dies, every time a boy kills a Space Marine, every time a Git stabs someone in the back, every time a Git stabs someone in the back, Ghazghkull gets a little bit stronger, he gets a little bit bigger, and ultimately he is becoming a bit of a beast. And we should hopefully see him at some point fight a Primarch, which is what we all want to happen. So, very exciting. Yeah, the book is the campaign itself is probably not going to be the biggest defining campaign we've seen in recent years. The tone of the book is much more in the grim darkness of the far future, but especially on Armageddon, there is only war. So this planet is just always going to have a lot of wars on it, and it's never going to cease, and life there will eternally be miserable. So it's not like it's probably not going to be as impactful as the 10th edition lore was with the arrival of the Tyranids, or the 9th edition lore was with the arrival of the Silent King. This lore is going to be much more about returning to Armageddon, and in that way, I'll be honest, it's a bit more boring. It's not that interesting, but hopefully it is a springboard onto something more interesting in the future. And as we do see these campaigns kind of continue, so the book does a good job of giving you great details on all of like the big hive cities that they're fighting over. And the reason that this is so important is because we, the players, are going to decide, in theory, who wins certain key battles, and whether the Imperium wins or the Orcs win will determine the future story of Ghazghkull at the very least. As to much of the Imperium, probably won't decide too much. There's quite a lot that is missing from the book that I was a bit shocked about. There is a novel coming out which I haven't read yet, and I'll update you guys on once I've read that. But the book doesn't do too much to talk about how the Blood Angels got here. It doesn't do too much to talk about and expand like meaningfully, I would say, on the other Space Marine chapters. Of course, I'm sure a lot of you, as soon as I mentioned Marines Malevolent, your ears kind of pricked up. Marines Malevolent and Salamanders, this is going to get a bit spicy. Nothing as of yet outside of that guy losing his leg, but still, I mean, maybe this will be a springboard to a big storyline in the future, which would be pretty exciting, and we'd like to see the Salamanders maybe humble the Marines Malevolent a little bit. It would be fun, wouldn't it? And likewise, like some of the artwork Games Workshop have released for like Tacticus, etc., has got Dante and Mephiston on Armageddon, or at least fighting orcs. So perhaps we'll see the arrival of some major characters. But Adrax Agatone is a relatively big character in the setting. Like, he has a model and he's an old character, but there's not really the impact of massive characters outside of Marnius Kaugar making some phone calls at the beginning. So, of course it had to be Marnius Kaugar. They had to slip him in. But overall, it's yeah, I would say that if you're expecting this edition to completely change Warhammer 40k, especially in the wake of the new 11th edition trailer, you'll probably be a touch disappointed. But still, there's a lot of really fun lore, and I must say the way the book is written is great. Like, huge props to GW on that. It's much more for you guys that kind of like the Imperial armor tomes and all this style of writing. There's a lot of maps. There's a lot of details on you get details on all of the successor chapters that do arrive on the world. Not massive amounts, but little bits. So I think people will get a kick out of this, and I'm glad that this is kind of the style of writing that they've switched to, because those books have historically done huge numbers for the setting, so, and the fandom. So I can't wait to see how many people kind of enjoy this, and I hope we get more in this style for the coming edition. That'd be very cool. Anyway, hello chat, how are you doing? Perfect. I hope you're all doing well. Let's answer some questions. A couple of super chats. Thank you so much. Maester Marwin, what is the chronology of Nate Crowley's Ghazghkull book? It was setting up something at the end with the capture of Makari, who is in Flowers' books. So, the Nate Crowley book, it does a pretty good job actually with the chronology, because the chronology takes place over quite a long period of time. But I think it normally explains. I think it might even be one of those books at the start where it's got. Let me see if I can find it. I think I've got it on Kindle somewhere. Where will I have put it? Yeah, let's go Thraka. Okay, it's just at the start they did that. I'm misremembering. But yeah, it's because the chronology takes place over quite a long period of time. Like, you get stuff like talking about pre-Armageddon, and then you get stuff from battling Ragnar. It's kind of all over the place. So the book is more of like a lot of it is like a summarizing Ghazghkull's kind of life and an introduction for the character. As for Makari himself, there is the plotline with Makari in that book, but Makari is supposed to be a relatively enigmatic thing. Like, you're not supposed to know what happened to him really, or whether he is just the same Grot and why Ghazghkull chooses him. So yeah, he will just be passed from author to author, but it looks like Denny Flowers has taken over Ghazghkull, like you say, because Grotstick, the Mad Doc, and Warlord of Warlords are very clearly building towards something greater, and like the idea of Grotstick making new enemies for Ghazghkull to fight in the future and that kind of thing. So I suspect we won't see another Nate Crowley Ghazghkull book, but I think Denny Flowers is probably the better of the two, to be honest with you. So I don't really mind. I don't know how you feel about it, but I'm all right with that one. I love how Calgary is involved. Yes. Comments for the comment guard, likes for the like thrown. Yes, please. Thank you so much. If everybody could like the stream, it does really help it out. And yes, I think there's a hype thing at some point that comes up. I don't know how that works, but if you get the opportunity to hype, please hype. schedule a stream for when one of the home nations is playing tournament football. Yes, well, you're right. I mean, it's fair. I always watch England in the World Cup. I often watch Scotland, but to be honest, because of the heat and because of the World Cup, my streaming schedule has been a little bit tougher to stick to. I meant to stream earlier in the week, but it was so hot. England played and it was so hot, and it was tough to get everything out in time. And so I'm streaming this late because this is in theory going to be a little bit cooler, but even now it is still very hot. So I apologize, Scotland fans. I hope you can watch it afterwards, but yeah, best of luck in the game. I'll be honest, if you do pull this out of the bag against Brazil, I will very much regret not watching. But good luck. No talking about England Ghana. No, yeah, we're not going to talk about England Ghana right now. But hey, we go back, we'll go back to the drawing board or whatever, and then we go again. We go again to Panama, so we'll be fine. We'll be fine. Salamanders and the Marines Malevolent working together, yes. And Caiaphas Kane saves the day. Not as of yet. Even Yarrick isn't as prominent in the story as you might expect, weirdly. But hopefully there's more of Yarrick to come. So how does this relate to Constantine Valdor? I think that is first Keen Yellow Street mention. No mention of Valdor in this book whatsoever. Don't worry about that. Hilariously, like, Games Workshop do have this habit of constantly reusing names and I mean, yeah, just words and how they name things. And so you see like Iron Warriors, Iron Hands, etc. And there's a good example of that in this book where there's a tower called like the Tower of the Eyes of the Emperor or something like that. And when that came up, I read that title and I was like, oh, here we go. This is going to be about like custodians on Armageddon. And no, it's not at all. It's just they couldn't think of another name. And you're like, you're so lazy. Come up with a different name. You know what that means. It's crazy. Armageddon. Armageddon is also a stable warp route to the Sol system and has a massive manufactorium output for wars in the entire segmentum. Yes, that's true. Sorry, I've been a little bit dismissive, but yes, historically Armageddon has produced loads and loads of tanks. Of course, the Armageddon Steel Legion, and that's a massive deal. But outside of that, I feel like I can understand like looking at Armageddon and being like, it's a lot to go through, but it is yes, it is. It would be a huge loss in the long run for the morale of the Imperium. Is it true that Ulunor Armageddon was artificially teleported away? That is true, yeah, in the Beast Arises series a long time ago. Who do you think Ghazghkull will fight first? A Demon Primarch or a Primarch? I feel like the fandom has been like manifesting a Ghazghkull Angron fight for so long. It's a perfect battle because both of them love fighting. Both of them would want it to happen. Well, Angron, I don't know if Angron really wants anything because he's just like a mad beast nowadays. But I do really like the idea that they actually are pulled together to fight. Because just to clarify, there was nothing in the lore that actually Games Workshop did to imply they would fight, outside of like one of the skulls on Angron's model looking kind of like Yarrick because had a bionic. But outside of that, I think yeah, it would be an epic showdown, and there's no reason giving Ghazghkull that win would be huge. I mentioned earlier that of course there's this lore of Ghazghkull fighting against Ragnar Blackmane, and in that Ghazghkull's kind of winning the fight, and it's Nate Crowley's book explains it a bit more, where Ghazghkull's sort of winning the fight, but then Ragnar is able to cut off his head. Now, in a later book, Ghazghkull says that actually he let Ragnar win, and he says the Ragnar is the closest anybody's ever come to beating him, and even then he let Ragnar win. But still, it's always sort of left a bad taste in people's mouths because ultimately it's Ghazghkull, right? We want to see him have a big win. We want to see him fight a Primarch and win. And Angron's a perfect Primarch to kill because he can come back a couple of months later and he'll be right as rain. So yeah, I mean, you pretty much just yeah, you can. If any character needs a win, you can have them just kill Angron. No harm, no foul, pretty much. Sorry, World Eaters fans. Towards Chaos fans generally, you are just the punching bags. I hope you're handling the heat okay. Yes, I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. We bought a fan. It's been quite funny in the UK seeing like the number of people walking through the street carrying fans home. But we'll see. As I get increasingly shiny, then maybe I'll have to cool the stream. But I'm trying to stream a little bit later just to help things out a little bit. It also doesn't help that my computer is obviously quite a beast, so it's yeah, pretty hot in here. Degreen is a metaphysical webway in that it's both of reality and has warp-like tendencies. It works like the communication network of fungi. Ghazghkull is a light in Degreen like the Astronomicon. So, in the books, because actually the Orc books are one of those books, so we spoke about this with Hive, where at the end of some of the Orc books you get like a, what's the word I'm looking for? A list of what Orc words use and what they actually mean. What's that mean? You get, yeah, anyway, you get a list of Orc terminology, a terminology list. Yeah, anyway, and the green is typically used to just refer to the warp, but with Ghazghkull they're referring it to mean something more. It's also like a relatively physical thing. So like the big development is that when Ghazghkull battles one of these creations of Grotsnik, some of the green leaks out of Ghazghkull, which is why he's called the bucket, and Grotsnik is able to capture some of it in this like Drukhari device, and he is now intending to use that green to basically make a second Ghazghkull. And it's not really expanded upon in the second novel, Ghazghkull Warlord of Warlords, but it is going on in the background. Like there's a bit that sort of implies that Vautan the Patient, which is the name of this new Challenger Orc, he's being tortured, experimented on. It's a pretty rough time, and he's like, Vautan is just trying to stay sane, because Ghazghkull is kind of interesting in that Ghazghkull's not so much like a person. He's like, he was originally just like a mindless, he was just another boy, he wasn't like an important Orc boy who was treated in a special way. He was just a random Orc boy that died, basically, and then Grotsnik brought him back. So the degree to which Ghazghkull has a personality, as opposed to just being like the center of the Orc race, is kind of indistinguishable. Which is the best Orc book to get started on? Brutal Cunning. Brutal Cunning is great. Yeah, Mike Brooks' books are also very, very good. Like, yeah, Brutal Cunning was so good, it kind of spurred on everything else, because although of course the Orcs have appeared in many books, Brutal Cunning was like the first book where they're like the main protagonists, which is kind of crazy to think because that didn't happen that long ago. But yeah, that's just sort of, that tells you how much attention Space Marines get, right? And so, yeah, the Brutal Cunning was just that good. And yeah, it is, it's not about Ghazghkull at all, but Uftak is the main Orc. He's a really interesting character. I don't know if I should spoil it, but yeah, like the story of how he kind of becomes a big boss, and the power that he wields and the struggles that he has to kind of gain command over a larger and larger warband is, it's really good. It's just fantastic. And in the second book, he ends up going up against some of the Drukhari, and it's hilarious. Like the Drukhari are, like, because the Orcs are mad. So of course, every loss is just humiliating. But it's one of those books as well where, like, I think he did it deliberately. The Drukhari in the book are like over the top, maniacal, like just complete evil bastards, and yet these still lose. And it's very funny. Where were we? Crowley should just keep writing the Necrons. Yeah, if he could write a third book, that would go hard. But I feel like the second book ties everything off so well, and it's a very well crafted story that in a way I kind of don't want him to write a follow-up book. But what's really interesting about Nate Crowley's Necrons is that the concept of a Flayer King is a pretty old concept in Warhammer 40K. There are old Necron codexes which talk about the idea of a Flayer King, and now that we actually have one who's properly fleshed out, I mean, it would be cool to give him like a whole new story. And the Flayers are one of those things. We don't know too much about them, of course. It has to be kept in the mystery. But yeah, totally agree. That would be great. Is it just me, or is Black Library not publishing many novels this year? Yeah, there's not too much, I don't think. There's normally, because I try to read all of them, so normally it's about 16 to 18. I average of like 17, something like that, I would say, a year for 40k. And yeah, there's not that many. There's quite a lot that you'll see mentioned on like Warhammer Community, but a lot of them are anthologies and collected works, things republished in different languages and that kind of thing. So maybe that takes up their time. So they've got to make sure, you know, A Fall of Cadia is out in so many languages, and until that happens, they won't be publishing many more 40k books or whatever it's going to be. But yeah, I feel like there has been too much this year, given that we're in June. Since Khorne and Orcs have been involved with Armageddon again and again, would it make sense for another Chaos God like Nurgle showing up because of the great game and all the death stuff? Yes, I mean, that is, you're very much on the money of 40k generally. That's kind of like how 40k works, that if you want to work for one Chaos God, you're pretty much going to empower the others as well, almost certainly in the long run. And it's just the degree to which you do that and where you give your praise. But certainly, like, Plague Marines are very much active on Armageddon, and yeah, the whole planet is a mess. So of course, and there's chaos cults everywhere, and the Imperium is constantly cracking down on them. The Imperium, it's a common thing in like guard books, is that what happens is there's a chaos invasion, and then of course they're not just fighting against the chaos invasion, they're fighting against chaos cults across the planet, and lots of them do persist. So at this point in the 40k timeline, it wasn't that long ago that Angron appeared. Like, and he had to be banished by the Grey Knights, and using if you're not familiar, in the last campaign, the Grey Knights had to use like the remnants of the Black Blade of Antuir. No, wrong blade. The Black Blade of Angron, and they had to use his parts of his blade basically to banish Angron back to the warp, and that prevented another catastrophe. But of course, in the run-up to this, that has meant that there's been a huge amount of chaos corruption, and that is very much present in the campaign, and that is still causing problems for the Imperials. And in the story, you've got Space Marines that are supposed to be hunting orcs, but then they're pulled into battle against Plague Marines and Chaos Cults, etc. So it's a nightmare. No doubt there's going to be some Gene Stealer cultists and all kind of nonsense going on. They're everywhere, like a plague, some would say. Let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think of this new edition. Are you pretty hyped so far? There is a new novel accompanying this book, which I will read and cover in a future live stream. But let me know what you're thinking of the lore so far. Do you think I'm missing anything with Armageddon, or is it probably not going to be as exciting as the previous editions? Just my personal opinion, but I don't really think this is going to have the same impact. But yeah, let me know in the comments what you think. And I mean, what do you think they should do with Marneus Calgar next? I guess that's the big question. I mean, obviously, they need to make him more powerful than Ghazghkull, and he has to be the center of presumably every campaign going forward. So I'm kind of interested to see how far can they stretch this. But anyway, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Thanks for watching this stream. If you could help me appease YouTube's machine spirit by liking and subscribing, I would greatly appreciate it. If you couldn't make the stream live but want to ask me a question anyway, consider posting it in our community tab and I'll answer it next time. To support the channel, click the join button below, which will give you access to more content, and you can drop into the members Discord, where all the coolest Terrans hang out, away from the watchful eyes of the Inquisition. Thanks for joining me, and until next time, I wait for you and I forgive you. Good night.